Hey everyone, happy Saturday. I've never done this on a Saturday. I know we call it Rosacea Wednesday, but today's Saturday, and I just felt compelled to come to Facebook Live. Um, and today I want to talk about your four. So I'm titling this Facebook Live, What is Your Four? Do you know what your four is? So this is because I recently watched, actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, this fantastic race by Faith Kipyegon. And it was her attempting to break the 4 minute mile. So historically, no woman has ever broken the 4 minute mile. I think the first time it was broken by a man was 30 years ago, but it is probably one of the most difficult races to run because it requires endurance, it requires speed, it requires capacity. And so Faith, who had the record of 4 minutes and 7 seconds, was attempting to break the 4 minute mile. So as I was thinking about that and thinking about Wazesha Wednesday and everything that we try and do on Wazesha and just sort of the engagement that I have with you on a constant basis, I thought to myself, do you know what your four is? What is the four for you? We're heading to the second half of 2025. You probably identified a ton of stuff that you wanted to do in January of 2025, and now we're heading to July. So, what is your four? For Faith Kipyegon, it was breaking the 4 minute mile. What is it for you? Is it breaking the 4 minute mile? I doubt because none of us, well, I don't know if any of us are athletically capable of doing that. But perhaps it's breaking the four-figure monthly income, right? I talked about that a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about six-figure incomes, and that sort of translates loosely to four-figure income per month. Is it running a marathon? Is it losing weight, a certain amount of weight? Is it education pursuit and getting a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate, an associate's, a certificate, whatever it is? I want to know what your four is. What is the four that you want to break? So perhaps the other reason why this was so interesting to me was because I, I'll be honest, I can run. I'm a good runner. Not a short distance runner, not a short distance runner. But middle and long distance, I can do pretty well. I have sort of the capacity to do it. I've done a 5K in 19 minutes and some change, which is kind of more than better than average. I've done a 10K in 40 minutes. I've done a half marathon in 1.5 hours. I've done a full marathon in 3.5 hours. So I do have the maybe capacity and capability to do those type of runs. Um, but I've never done a marathon in less than 3 hours. I've never done a half in less than an hour. I've never done a 5K in 18 minutes. I've never done a 10K in less than 40 minutes. So, what is your four? What is that barrier that you want to break? What was interesting when I was watching it's on Prime, you see the first episode of When Faith is training for this. What was interesting is when pursuing her 4 minute mile, yeah, 4 minute mile, there were so many variables to consider. Most of us think that our God given talents are enough to be able to break our four. And that's what psychologists call nature. There's always this tension between nature and nurture. Nature is what you're born with, nurture is what you can develop. And I'm curious, when we think about our nature and what I will refer to as I talk a little bit more about fixed mindset, which is I was born this way, this is what I'm capable of. Do we limit our potential by having that fixed mindset and relying just on nature versus adapting nurturing to break the four? So here's what I observed. When Faith was training, there were a ton of variables, right? Beyond watching the first episode where she talks about, as a little girl running in the village, running to and from school without shoes, is the understanding of what it takes to break four. The episode focused on data, understanding what speed and power is, assistive technology, the type of shoes she had to wear, the running outfit that she had to put on, and probably the biggest internal variables, how to build her endurance, maximize the oxygen and muscle recovery. So why am I kind of talking, about all these things? I think oftentimes as we think about our ambition and our objective, whatever that goal is, whatever that breaking for is, we typically reach into ourselves and look for that power, that nature that we have in order to achieve this, in order to accomplish our goals. But what I'm proposing is that beyond the nature which we all need, we need to know what our capabilities are, is the nurture. What are those things that outside of you are needed in order to allow you to break your fall? You see, beyond understanding your capability, which is primarily a function of nature, potential, etc., is the understanding of the environment around you and how it either assists or hinders you in the pursuit of breaking your fall. So as I was watching this episode, I was amazed just by the data science behind the preparation. Footwear response. How does the footwear respond to you? Capacity determination. How much capacity does she have? How much capacity is she capable of? Weight reduction of footwear. Dude, this I can attest. So I'll get back to Faith, but I'll sidetrack a little bit. I remember when running these races, there were three fundamental things that I always thought about. One was my heart and my capacity and my capability. So I have really good stamina when it comes to my heart. It pumps well. I'm really good at that. The second thing I used to think about were my legs, because your legs get tired, your muscles get sore. So how can you ensure that you build your legs to a point where they are capable of carrying you through those distances in that amount of speed? Then the third thing was the mind, the mindset. And the mindset can be really tricky. The mind can trick you into thinking that you're done. The mind can start playing games with you. And the trick that my mind always played on me was it would tell me my shoes were heavy. It would say, Ichi, your shoes are too heavy. You need to stop now. If you don't stop, your legs are just going to you will never be able to walk again. These shoes are too heavy. That's what my mind kept telling me, right? So as I was watching this and seeing them reduce the grams, the weight of the footwear, even by what appears to be something so small but as significant as 30%, that really helped Faith prepare for her run. The energy return, as you expend energy, how much is it returning to you? The aerodynamics, how do you cut through the wind? They even had a location strategy, which was where can she run where there's no extra wind and there's no headwind? That's why they selected a stadium in Paris. They figured out using AI and other science, is it going to rain? Is it going to be windy? So location and the date when the running was going to happen. What was the temperature score of that stadium? So how hot does it get? How cool does it get to support her run? Humidity. Make sure there's no rain. And then most importantly, which was really fascinating, was designing a speed suit that was not too constrictive for her, but constrictive enough that it allowed her to cut through the wind. You see, they saw wind as a barrier. That was the biggest barrier that they thought Faith would be facing. External barrier was wind. So as you think about breaking your fall, you have to think about what are all those variables that are going to impede you from breaking your fall. If it's your earning potential, if that's your breaking fall, is breaking the 4-figure monthly income, what is it beyond your desire, your perhaps even the skill you have? What are those barriers that are going to stop you from breaking fall? The other thing that was interesting as I watched this was beyond the science was the community and the supportive factors. So once you're able to identify those barriers that will stop you from breaking fall, you have to start thinking about what are those supportive factors that will push you toward breaking your four. And when I was watching this episode, again, it's just the first episode and then the race, was beyond the science was the community. I mean, when you see the community she was training with, the inspiration she draws from them, the inspiration she gives to them, talk about the coaches, the pacers, the amount of work they did, trying to ensure that their strides were the same stride as Faith. All those, I would say, supportive factors, those pacers to create a low pressure zone, the people who are designing the shoes, the people who were training with her on a daily basis, the people who are giving her nutrition, the right nutrition, so she can prepare for the race, and their ability to disrupt those variables that were a barrier to her. So as you think about breaking year four, I want you to be very transparent with yourself about what are those things that are hindering me and what are those things that are supportive of me. Once you identify those two, you are well on your way to breaking your four. So, in some way, watching all this and then seeing her run, all this made me wonder, as we head to the second half of 2025, have you identified your four? Come closer, come closer. Have you, no, not them, have you identified your four? What is that four that you want to break? If you have identified your four, how well are you doing on breaking your four? How well are you doing on breaking your four? What is the wind? What is that barrier? For Faith, it was wind. What is the wind? They say wind is a wall. What is your wall and what is your wind? What is that thing that's stopping you from breaking four? Do you have a good quantitative understanding of what is needed to break the four? Do you have a good quantitative understanding of what's needed to break your four? So if your four is earning a six-figure income, breaking the four-figure monthly income, if your four is running a marathon, if your four is running a 10K, if your four is running, period, if your four is going back to school, if your four is building a better relationship with your spouse, with your partner, with your kids, whatever your four is, have you identified what that wall is, what that wind is? Do you have a quantitative understanding of the barriers you will face? With Faith, she had to break the wind barrier. With Faith, she had to break the speed suit barrier. With Faith, she had to break the footwear barrier. Do you have a supportive environment of pace setters? Your community that's going to help you, your coach that's going to guide you, your family that's going to push you, your friends that will be there for you when you don't break that four. Most importantly, do you have a good understanding of your capabilities, your natural born talent supported by the nurturing required to fulfill your hidden potential? Because remember, it's not just about nature. Nature will get you to 6 minutes. Nature and nurture will get you to 5 minutes. Nature, nurture, and a supportive environment will break your four. So I've talked in the past, I've talked about the fumble principle, right? Face your fear, right? Get unstuck, manage your mindset, be bold, leadership, and execute. And I feel so strongly about fumble because that is a principle that can help you break your four. To break your four, you have to face your fear. You don't, again, I say this all the time. Don't ever listen to someone who says, don't be afraid. You have to be afraid because when you're afraid, that shows that you're ready to evolve and you're ready to break your four. What you have to do is face your fear by learning, by exposure therapy. You have to get unstuck. Faith had to get unstuck. She had to understand that her capabilities were only as good as the speed suit she was wearing. Her capabilities were only as good as the headwind she was going to face. Her capabilities were only as good as the nutrition she had to have. Her capabilities were only as good as the supportive community, the coaches, the friends who were around her who would push her. So You need to get unstuck. Manage your mindset. Fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Managing mindset means understanding that the fixed mindset is not enough to break the 4. The fixed mindset will break the 10 because you're born with talent. God given talent that you uniquely have, the fingerprint that no one else has. But a growth mindset means that you're ready to support your nature with nurture. You're ready to figure out how to grow within yourself and outside of yourself to break the 4. B, you have to be bold. You have to make those bold objectives. So, you know, high school, I think I had stamina. I played, I was in soccer team. I was the captain of the rugby team. I ran 800, 1.5, 3K. So I had the capacity, let's just say. I had the capacity to do so. And then I didn't run for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. And then I did my first race. I think it was, I don't even remember when it was. It was probably like 2005 or something like that. And it was a 10K. And I ran with Charlie Courier, with Chris Masharia. And I remember sitting down watching MTV, after one of my races. And I saw Oprah run a full marathon. Oprah Winfrey, and she was running with this guy who's currently in the system, known as P Diddy. So Oprah was running with P Diddy, and they were running for some sort of charity. And Oprah ran 26.2 miles. She ran a full marathon, and I watched, and I thought to myself, if Oprah can do it, that is my 4. I'm going to break that 4. I will run a marathon. And I remember training for it. I was just, hey, let me run 5 miles. Let me run 7 miles. Let me run 9 miles. And then I think I probably ran 10 miles and I said, it's impossible. Even with my God-given talent, even with nature, it's impossible. And then I did something that I probably hadn't done ever, which is I reached out, to the internet, and I looked for a training program. And the training program was very rigid. It had like 12 weeks of running. Day 1, you run 3. Day 2, you run 5. Day 3, you run 1, whatever it was. So you're building from 10 miles a week to 40 miles a week. But it was very rigid. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever it was, whatever the schedule was. And once I allowed myself to be less stubborn, maybe, to think beyond nature and think about nurture, to think about the science of running, to think about the science of a marathon, only then was I able to train effectively to run my first marathon. And I ran it in, I don't know, just less than 4 hours, which was really good for a first-time runner. But here's my point. My point is, as you break your 4, you have to be humble enough to know when you need help to break that 4. Faith was humble enough to reach out to the community, to reach out to coaches, to reach out to scientists, to be able to break that 4. A few weeks ago, I talked about understanding your value worth and the supporting skills that are required to break the 4-digit monthly income. And I think there's a parallelism between breaking the 4-digit monthly income and breaking the 4-minute barrier for the mile. And what I proposed, and I feel strongly about this, is that it's skill set, mindset, and strategy. So beyond nature, again, let's just call it what it is. You know your capabilities naturally. But beyond that is, what skill set do you have? What science do you need to learn? What upskill do you need to have in order to break the 4? What mindset do you need to have? Growth mindset versus fixed mindset versus all other mindsets do you need to have to break the 4? And then most importantly, what's your strategy? Because look, Faith had the skill set. Faith had the mindset. But the strategy was needed to figure out what are the best conditions for her to run her best race. So as you think about breaking your 4, what I'm proposing is this. Don't rely on just yourself to break your 4. You have to figure out what the strategy is for breaking your 4. You have to trick your mind. You have to tell your mind, oh, my shoes are light enough. Oh, my lungs are okay. Oh, my legs are strong. It will carry me through the next 3 miles. It is strategy. I broke my 4 years ago. I ran a 5K in 19 and change, a 10K in 40 minutes, a half marathon, which is, 13.1 miles in an hour and a half, a full marathon, that's 26.2 miles, over 40 kilometers in 3.5 hours. I obtained my doctorate. I was hired by the most globally recognized company in the world. By the way, less than 0.2% of the population has run a marathon or has gotten accepted at Google. But what if that's not my 4? What if that's my 5? What if that's my 6? That means I still need to break my 4. My 4 is still yet to be broken. So even as you identify your 4, once you're done breaking 4, you might find out that that was actually your 5 and that your 4 is yet to be broken. I'm curious to hear, what is your 4? What is your 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. What is your 4? What's your plan to break it? And more importantly, how can I help? Because I feel so strongly about this. I mean, watching that show, watching the episode, and then watching the run just filled me with like a full heart, a full desire to break my next 4 and to help you break your 4. So let me know what it is. I'm curious to know what it is. Put it in the comments and let me know how I can help. That's my Wezesha Wednesday on a Saturday. Heading out to break bread with my brothers, my Umoja brothers, as we share in brotherhood, discuss mental health, even as we try and solve hunger and figure out what our 4 is so we can break it. I hope this Wezesha Wednesday was as inspiring to you as Faith's run was inspiring to me. Let's break our 4. Wezesha Wednesday, Ichi here, I'm out.